Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Not Enough Projects. Today we're going to be looking at my Rototiller. Picked this up for free last year. It had been sitting for who knows how long. The carb was, as you'd expect, completely gummed up. In fact, it was pretty much beyond repair. It's got an updraft style carb on it. The pickup tube, which is made of plastic, had deteriorated to the point of where it had broken. So I was able to get a brand new carb for only, I think it was like 25 bucks or so. All in all, not too bad. Cleaned out the gas tank as best as I could, and it was a good runner. But as you can see, I broke the pull start. So first things first, we're going to be replacing that, and then making sure it's all good to go this season. First things first, I'm going to go ahead and take off these bolts. You can see one's missing. The case is actually broken there, but it still worked okay. I'll get these out and we can see what we're looking at. Okay, I've got these 5/16 bolts out. As you can see, here's the end where it ripped. Now a lot of times you can get away with just retying this end onto the handle, which is what I'm going to try first, so that I don't have to rethread everything through. So what I'm going to do is wrap this back up, thread it through this hole, and tie it onto our handle. Looks like there's a cover we got to pop off, so we can get this old piece of rope out. So here we go. I've got the rope spooled back up and pushed through the pull start hole. If I remember correctly, the pull start never actually raveled back up all the way, which makes sense because this is the way of engine rotation, and when I let go, you can see there's still a good amount of rope hanging out. So I'm going to cut this back a little bit just to get to the good part of the rope, and then we'll try threading it through the handle and tying that back up. Okay, I've got the rope cut back a little ways. Now I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get this cover off on the handle. It should just, come right out. Set that aside. Oh, actually it's threaded into that. Okay. So we'll pull that out. Thread this new end through the handle. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and pull this old part of the rope out. Thread the new part through. Looks like I'm going to need a pair of needle noses or something. Let me bring you guys back once I get it through. Alright, so what I found works best is to get a little dental pick or whatever, O-ring pick, whatnot. Grab the rope, pull it through to get it around the corner. Pull it out. There it goes. And then we'll just get enough length out so that we can tie a quick knot. So I went ahead and just tied a square knot onto here. Looks like it's going to be a little bit too big to fit back into the recess. So maybe what I'll do is burn it and make it a little bit smaller so it'll fit back into that hole. So what I ended up finding worked best was to tighten the knot with some pliers, and then I just touched it to the flame for a second to shrink it up a little bit, pulled it down, and it ended up sitting in there okay. A lot of times these pull starts have an end just like this lower part, where you tie a big knot on there, and that would definitely work too if I wasn't able to get it to fit back into here. So let's get this pulled back into the lower half, and then we can screw the pull start housing back onto the engine and see if we can get it to start up. So as you can see, there's still a little bit of hanging out. I think that's because the springs on this thing are a little worn out. It was doing the same exact thing prior to the rope breaking. But as you can see, still able to get a decent turnover on the engine. It's a little bit shorter, obviously, but hopefully that won't be too big of a deal. So let's get a little bit of gas in here and see if we can get it to start up. Okay, fuel tank's filled back up. Let's see if we can get it to start up. Well, as you can see, it's not want to start up. So let's double check that we still got spark. And then we can go from there. Okay, I've got the plug popped out. Let's see what we got for spark. Looks like we got some pretty decent spark. So let's drizzle a little bit of fuel down the spark plug hole and see if we can get it to light off, and maybe then it'll start sucking fuel and keep going. Okay, got some fuel drizzled down in there. Let's thread the spark plug back in. Give it another go. Well, it runs. Looks like it's still not want to pull fuel. Let's drizzle a little bit more down and see what we get. This jug's almost empty, so it's only really doing a few drops. Alright, here we go. Whoa. Here we go. Seems like we finally got it happy. Let's make sure the tines still work. As you can see, I don't have a kill switch set up. You just have to ground that. So it looks like our gas cap's not making a real good seal. We'll have to address that. And it didn't want to go into drive. It worked perfectly last season. This here puts it in reverse, neutral, forward and back. Okay, so it's going into gear there. You can see how hard it is to push it. If I move it back to here, it rolls. But there. Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think this has a reverse. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so it's neutral, engaged. And then this is like the clutch. I think it's, if you push it in, it disengages, and if you pull it out, it engages. But it might be the opposite of that. So now that we have that engaged, let's try pulling with this out and see if it moves it at all. Okay, so the engine is free to turn without the wheels turning. Let's push this back in. Pull again. Well, it's still free to turn, but I think, now that I'm remembering, there's a belt that slips. Yeah, you can see there's the belt. Let me show you guys that tensioner pulley. See if I can get a good angle. And I'll show it to you guys while I pull the engagement lever. And we can see if it's actually going or not. So it doesn't look like it's actually moving. And I think I can see why. This rod here is connected to the engagement lever here. And when I push it, I think it should be pushing this whole linkage, which then goes into the case over here, and this should be moving back and forth, but it's not. So let's try lubing this up really good and see if we can get it to start spinning. You can see there's a tiny bit of movement, but definitely not enough. So let me go get some penetrating lube and see what we can get going. Okay, I've got it sprayed down with some WD, which I know is not the best lubricant, so if we get it moving again, I'll spray it down with some dry lube or something. But it's significantly easier to move, and as you can see, there's starting to be a little bit of movement over here. So let's keep working it back and forth and see when we can get going. Everything's feeling free now. Let's feel what the pulley is like if it's tightening up. Okay, so that's loose. Let's try moving the lever the other way. It's still pretty loose. I'm not sure how well you guys can see into there. It's pretty dark. Let me try moving the linkage manually. You see it moves. This should be engaging like that, so that the belt is tight. But it's not. So, what I was doing there was I was just pushing this like that. This side also moves. That might be engaging a separate belt for the drive. I'm not entirely sure. Let's try pushing this back. Okay, you can see it pulled the adjuster pulled it in towards where we need it to go, just not quite enough. Well, now that we actually have it moving, let's try starting it up and just see if we're missing something and see if it's actually working. So still no-go on the engagement. Let me do a little bit of looking and see if I'm just missing something. There might be an adjustment. We can try popping off these wing nuts and get a better look into there, onto the mechanism. Okay, I have the cover off. It's basically like what I expected. You have this linkage coming from the lever, pushes this down, pulls this back, which pulls this backwards, and I think this is actually the issue. You can see just how sticky it is, so maybe we'll end up popping that bolt off and see what's causing that to hang up. Let me go get a wrench for this. We can pop that off and see what we got going on. Okay, I've got this bolt loosened up just a little bit. And you can see it moves quite a bit more free. And it's doing what it's supposed to. I think I'm going to pop the bolt out all the way so that we can spray some lube onto all the pivot points. You can see the bolt. Pretty gummy. Some nastiness on there. Pretty much the same story on this part. You see, it looks like there's some remnants of grease down here. No longer doing what it's supposed to. Maybe I'll squirt some grease out on there, and then we can get the bolt threaded back in. Alright, here we go. I've got the grease gun in position. Just going to give it a little bit. I think that's going to be good. Let me go wipe off my hands and we get the bolt back in. Okay, bolt's back in position. Let's go ahead and tighten it down. Not going to go crazy in the torque here. Okay, let's see if the mechanism works now. Well, it looks like this side is engaging. This side, not so much. Although I'm not entirely sure how this mechanism would work to engage this far side, because to engage it, this needs to be pulled that way, but the arm is moving that way, and that's slotted. Well, let's just go ahead and start it up and see what we got going on. Alright, let's go ahead and start it up and see what happens. The kill button's a little fun. So, I think I actually just figured out the mechanism. They're not both supposed to engage at the same time. Because the drive is actually through this gearbox. You can see where the linkage comes through, which makes sense. So when you push the rod in, it engages the tines to move forwards. But if you pull it out, it goes into neutral. And if you pull it back even more, it engages the tines to go backwards by engaging that other far tensioner. So I guess it's a kind of reverse. I've never used that before. I never even knew it could do that. But it doesn't actually lock into that position. So I'm not entirely sure how useful it is, but hey, learn something new. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call that fixed. I'll get the cover back on there. And I think the only thing left is to just figure out the gas cap. So I'm looking at this cap here. Everything seems okay. But I noticed, as you can see, the gas can has this little ridge right here. That when you turn it past that point, it's supposed to suck the cap down a little bit more, so that it can seal on the O-ring. Now, here are the two locking arms. If we thread it in there and mark the position with our finger, we can see it's only getting to about here, which is right about where that raised tab starts. So I'm wondering if these need to get bent down just a little bit, or maybe if these ramps need to get bent down just a little bit. It'll focus so that it'll pull itself down. So let me get a screwdriver, bend them down just a little bit, see if we can get it to go on all the way. Well, as it turns out, I remembered I'm just an idiot, and that this gas cap threads on reverse. You turn it this way till it's nice and tight, and then take it off. Just keep spinning it, and out it comes. Because if you look on the ramp, you can see there's an actual ramp there, and this side is a hard stop. So I was just spinning it the wrong way. It wasn't able to get up onto the raised ridge. But if you spin it the other way, no problem. Let's start it back up and see if it's still leaking gas. Well, there you have it. Looks like we're good to go for another season. Hopefully this showed you can get pretty far by just reasoning your way through these kinds of things. I don't know if you could even find a manual on this kind of rig. It's pretty old. I don't even know what year. I do know this engine is old enough that all the parts for it are discontinued, except for the carburetor. $35 or whatever for that. Well, I hope you guys got something from that, and I hope you go and fix something also. I'll see you guys next time.